Hello, Earthlings. Hello, Kabbalists. Hello, Yetzi over there in the Netherlands. Hi, Sylvie, also in the Netherlands. Southern Sass. This isn't the Jungian shadow work show, but hopefully we're all hoping for you and hopefully everything works out, whatever's going on over there. Hi, Annie. Hi, Judith in California. Carl in Pittsburgh. Hello, everyone. Okay, good to see you guys. The world is changing. It's changing fast. And we expect a little reference to an old Kabbalah song, if you remember. Um, I almost said the next lyric too.
Yeah,
Uh,
the next line wouldn't be so obvious.
so we are in the midst of a lot of changes, and what we want. Well, hello, first of all, we are three students of the Kabbalist, Dr. Michael Lightman. We are looking at what's going on in the world through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah. And our goal, I guess the final goal would be that everyone lives harmoniously in an integral whole where every part is meaningful and full of quality and everyone is fulfilled. In the meantime, as we get there, what we want to do is stop the endless suffering. There's no need for it anymore. We're not living just as animals. Uh, Something happened. You could go back to Darwin. You could go back to the early Kabbalists, the RE 600 years before Darwin, or the Zohar 2000 years before Darwin, explaining that humans came from monkeys. But something changed. Some other thing happened where a new, like plants existed a long time, and then we got to animals. Well, animals existed a long time, and not every monkey becomes a human. There's this other thing. Something came from above, we could say. Something additional came from above, and this creature developed. We want to talk about it because if we're not, oh, I hear an echo. If we're not just developing as animals anymore, then can we take our own development into our own hands? Is there some freedom? They're not just developed like animals. Darwin's theory is well accepted that whoever is the strongest, and actually it doesn't just mean whoever, eats the other one or beats the crap out of the other one. There was also, so you could be the strongest, you could be the most cunning. There's also cooperation. There's no problem with the survival of the fittest, including cooperation, if that's the way uh, to get there. If we look back, though, the process kind of looks chaotic and uncertain because even if you're doing a great job and you're in the Sahara and it's green and then it becomes a desert, so all of those generations of development go to waste because now you're in a desert and you're not suited for desert living. Now, the wisdom of Kabbalah, although Rav Kook says that of all the sciences, Darwin was pretty close there. The wisdom of Kabbalah also has this kind of cause and effect evolution, but there's something different. With the wisdom of Kabbalah, we're approaching it from the end of the whole process. And if we approach it from the end, the Kabbalists tell us already the uh, the final state. And then, like we said, so then what's in our hands is the speed and process of development because we're not animals anymore and we can consciously participate in this process. So, how can we make sense of the world? How can we make sense of this process that's happening? So, we're guided now by our feelings.
Wait. I feel a needed tangent.
Okay.
I feel we might need to open up a little bit. What do we mean by, from a Kabbalistic perspective, we're looking at what's happening in the world and evolution from the end result. That is not such an easy, doesn't go down your throat so easily. We need to unpack that a little bit, you know?
So, if you were to go backwards If you were to trace everything, if you take a balloon, just a balloon that you'd blow up, right? And put
Hmm.
a bunch of dots around the balloon and then blow into the balloon. Now, all those dots get further away from each other.
Right. That's how they
So
explain the
this
Big
is
Bang, by the way. Yeah. Hmm.
right. This is how the Big Bang is explained. And also every point is actually like the center because everything is getting
Right.
further away from every point.
Yes.
So if you start traveling
Everyone's is the center of the
backwards,
universe essentially, because the
yeah.
universe inflated in all directions at the same time, so to speak. Yeah. Hmm.
If you reverse that, you get all the way back to this singularity where everything was one.
Okay.
Okay, now, although the books of Kabbalah deal with what happens before there was time and space, before the Big Bang, that's a little bit beyond this. You'll have to join us in our other classes in our academy for that. We're not going to get in this show. We talk about
Hmm.
from after time and space began. In our academy, there we talk
Just
about
to
we
make
study
things
the
simpler, we'll
we talk
stick
yeah we
within
talk
time
about
and space.
what happened before time and space and actually where all of this came from. But when we get back to everything was one singular, harmonious, well, one unity there. The end of the whole process is again that everything returns to that one singular, harmonious, integral state. However, the difference is if we're um, if we're in perfection, there's no free will. Because if you knew that if I make a right at this intersection, everything's going to be perfect in my life and endless eternal bliss. And if I make a left, it'll be less than imperfect. So, of course, I'm going to make a right. So, if we're in that state, there is no choice anymore because we would always just go towards the choice of that bliss. And now we just end up totally nullified completely. There is no more us anymore. We just become one with the whole system. You're just one drop of water in the whole ocean. Now, in order to get us to arrive at that unity as conscious beings, so now we have this process that we're in now where we feel detached from that and we need to consciously come to it. And that's what it means that the end process is the end goal is already predetermined. So,
All right.
we okay with that?
Yeah, I think that is
You
a
got
much
it. You and Chris got it.
much
So, if
needed.
anyone else got it, I'm not
No,
sure.
no,
Been
it's good.
received.
It's
Okay,
good context. I'll add just one example
please.
for for anyone whom this might help. We can ask, how is it possible that the end of development already exists? Because essentially, what you said, that's the conclusion. You're saying basically that the end is already there. We're just not actively feeling it yet. But then it's not that hard to understand if you look at anything that evolves and has DNA or any kind of program of development in it. You take a grain of wheat, you already know what's going to evolve out of it. Today, with genetic engineering and CRISPR and all these methods, what are they trying to do? They're trying to basically edit the DNA so that when the baby develops or comes out of the womb, it comes out in a certain way. So we're looking at the code, and the code is already there from nature. And just like there's a code for an apple or a grain of wheat or a human, there's also a DNA for all of humanity. There's a program of development. And that's why the Ari, as you mentioned, like 300 years before Darwin, said, he wrote that the monkeys are the intermediate level of life between animals and humans. So where did he know that? And he didn't have the whole theory of evolution then, just from observing that spiritual DNA of desire.
So why is that important
Yeah.
then? Why is it important to
Okay,
why like
okay.
to know if it's the end versus the if I'm looking at it from the end or if I'm looking at it from how Darwin looked at it?
Because we look at Republican and Democrat or liberal and conservative. or right and left or
Mm-hmm.
black and white. And we have this approach that one of them needs to defeat the other. But
Mm-hmm.
that's like night defeating day or dry defeating wet.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is because of this incorrect approach, we're like digging our heels in as nature's like pulling us forward. We're like trying to
Nice
slow
image.
down
Yeah,
the
we're like,
process.
no, no, we're gonna we're gonna
No,
stay here.
First of all, if we
we're
knew
gonna
that it was
We're gonna
nature
keep
dragging us,
fighting.
that's already good. If we knew that we were being dragged and it
Yeah.
was somebody dragging us, that's already good to know.
Oh man, you know that this
so
thing you brought up with like left and right and politics and all that. I mean, obviously, this is not a political show, blah blah blah. The regular disclaimers. We are a Kabbalah show. We're interested in the nature of
You gotta
things
say
and
it.
and all of that. All right. So that being said, it's such a good example, man, of how like there's so much. I would say almost everything about politics is about just fighting the other side, never agreeing, never complimenting, never trying to find common points, always being adversarial, always trying to like distance yourself from the other side, make your pitch unique and uniquely different, even if it's the same thing in different words. It's there's something specifically about politics that you don't see in the business world as much, and that you don't
Yeah.
see in art as much. That you see mutual inspiration between artists, you see mutual inspiration, and even all kinds of collaboration happening. It's just a different vibe. This such a hard cutthroat mentality in politics. It's just so it stands out as something so different, so opposite to
Because the intentions
like
were that those positions would serve the people. Those were the intentions. And so when you come so drastically far from that, and you have some kind of impression of what it means that someone should serve you, and you look at what the state of what it actually is, it feels so distant that it just doesn't. It feels so wrong. It feels so backwards.
And also, I think it's because that like the way the system works, the goal of one party is to defeat the other. The goal of one candidate is to defeat the other. That
That's the way
whole
it's built.
That's the way it's built, and the mindset that it creates is just so destructive. It's like
so
yeah.
y-
Anyway.
there's something from the morning lesson, if you guys remember, that all of these challenges, all of this reality that the world is presenting us,
Hmm.
it is actually some interface that through it we can reveal something else. So we can't remove the fact. Listen, we are led by our feelings and we're guided by emptiness. So, right. So, for example,
Hmm.
um, I have a lack of, I'm hungry and food's over there. So I turn over there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be shamed if I go over here. So then I turn over here. So if you imagine there's like a black hole, that's always in front of me. And wherever it goes, that guides where I'm going to go. Wherever that emptiness goes, I need to go to fill it. Everyone should be clear about that who's listening, that this is how we're led in our lives. We're led by that emptiness. I'm sitting here. If all of a sudden I feel that my life's going to be better if I scratch my cheek, scratch my cheek. If all of a sudden I feel that my life's going to be
Hmm.
better if I, get up and get something to eat or go to the bathroom, then I get up and get something to eat or go to the bathroom, unless I'm going to be embarrassed by doing it because someone's going
Hmm.
to think that I'm not working or something, whatever, then I'll sit here
Right.
because the pain is less if I sit here. But this is always the calculation.
Right.
Now, that's how life guides us. Now, when we get to
Balasalam wrote this
Which is our
beautifully. The
Hello?
life has, I can't remember the exact words, but it's something like life has harnessed all of development in two reigns of pleasure and pain, and at the end of the day, everything is just a calculation of how much pleasure can we get, or comfort, or benefit, or whatever you want to call pleasure, versus pain or effort or suffering or labor or work. And that calculation, pleasure
Yeah.
and pain, is just guides each and every thought action that we have and do. Yeah.
That's already so profound too. If that was all we talked about on the
Yeah.
show,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
already be. Did you ever see the what was that series about the opioid epidemic and the guy from what's his name? The guy from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He played the family owner. What was now Purdue Pharma and the opioids that they did there. What did they do? Was it OxyContin? You never saw that series? It was like it
I
was a Netflix.
I
There was a
don't
part in the
I don't think
series
so. Hmm.
where they were explaining how they could exploit this exact
Mechanism of pleasure and pain.
mechanism innate of pleasure and pain. They're like most people only want pleasure. If they feel bad, they immediately want to feel good. And they had this little image, this diagram of like a cycle. And they're like, if we could just stick ourselves in the middle there and bring them from pain to pleasure, and the fact that it's 10 times more addictive than, whatever it was, morphine, whatever. But that's already so profound because if you can control that, look how much control they have. They understand this one mechanism, this one law of nature, basically, and
Right.
they manipulate it, exploit it, and look at the damage that's caused. But interesting side note.
Yeah. All right,
So
Seth, take us somewhere.
yeah. So when we go when we think about this concept, like they're even making movies about it, it's clear, right? But for some reason we don't. Uh, it's not like guys. Maybe like a goal for
Right. You're
2025 is
right. You're
like
right.
at the
It's not obvious to people. It is not.
and even though we're saying it right now, I have a feeling like half the people don't even hear what we're saying because
Saying
it
what?
just like it.
Did I miss it? What are
Huh?
you talking about?
Just
That this is how we're ruled by these two reigns, by pleasure and
Yeah.
pain. Like it's so simple, but we don't have ears to hear
yeah,
it because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
taught to us. It seems
Hmm.
so foreign that one of the most wonderful things about coming to the wisdom of Kabbalah is, and it takes time to sink in, but how profound and fundamental some of these things that we learn at the beginning, these building blocks that
I agree.
to start to learn them, all of a sudden, you're the same person getting dressed, having the same breakfast, and you're going and doing the
Yeah.
same, but life just takes on it's not this
It just
chaotic
becomes
mush
transparent.
anymore.
Just a bunch of things just become transparent. You see patterns and motivations so clearly in you, in
Yeah.
others, in the world, in what's happening because it's so universal. It's so fundamental. It's so like the underpinnings of human nature are just becoming kind of clearer to you because you discover this on the inside. You discover it on yourself, on your own flesh, and that makes you also see it more clearly outside of you in the world, in people everywhere. Yeah.
And you know what else?
So we
You stop blaming too, which is that's a
True.
big thing.
Oh man,
You
that's a
you
huge
can't
thing.
blame anyone
Okay.
for
That's a
anything.
So this is a
huge
huge one
thing.
when it comes back to like the election and what's going on now,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of finger pointing, which is not to say that there can't be fights about things that we have serious disagreements on, but what
Sure.
the approach is, and we're not ready. Let's determine if we're ready. So Trump was elected. Elon and
What?
Vivek are. If anyone is
It's
going to
like the
be a
most
rock,
popular thing in the
Donald
world right
Trump
now.
was elected president of the United States, and there's going to be apparently a Department of Governmental Efficiency, and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to lead that.
It's like a
And
movie.
they're not taking salaries. Yeah, it's a good movie. And apparently, what Elon Musk said was that they're going to, and their goal is by the next birthday of the US in 2026, which would be the United States' 250th birthday, that they're going to cut $2 trillion in government spending of government waste, which is about a third of the total government spending. I wrote down a few things here that
Okay,
simple
But we all know
things.
Elon Musk. We all know Elon Musk's predictions, though. He has a track record for.
I
for
don't know, and I don't
going.
really know,
Mhm,
and it
mhm.
could be totally wrong. But I just want to point out the right and left thing here. So it costs
No, it's interesting
last.
to hear. even it doesn't matter what side it came from. I would be this raises an eyebrow. Doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum this comes from. Like the idea that, hey, it's basically saying, you know what, all of what we're doing is inefficient. There's
Right.
so much waste. Everything
Someone's
that we're
going.
doing, and I'm just gonna come and reshape everything so we get rid of, I don't know, 70% of it, or 90%. I don't know, whatever. I didn't look at the numbers, but this is very, very like, whoa.
If
Doesn't
you're
matter
in
what
that,
side
you're not
it's
happy.
coming from. Yeah.
So if you guys have families, I have a family, you wouldn't buy $200 worth of groceries and then not use 30 of it. $200 of groceries a week, and then 30 of it just let it
Right.
rot,
Yeah.
and then do that from week to week to week. You'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
let's either buy what we want or not buy this. But in my little mini micro economy of our household, I'm not going to continue to buy $30 of stuff that's waste, right? Either we're
Sure.
not going to buy it anymore, or if you want something, let's buy something we're going to use. So it costs, so you know what a nickel is? A nickel is 5 cents. Okay, I know you, I know Chris knows, he's grew up in Texas, but aside from me, I know what a nickel is. So a nickel,
I
the
didn't
cost
realize
to
they actually
pro-
use it in
Okay, so for those who
Yeah.
still use it, it costs the United States government more than 11 and a half cents to produce a nickel.
I've never
So
thought about that. That it
as soon as
costs
you
money to
produce
print
a
money.
nickel,
That's weird.
it costs you double from what it's worth.
So stop
And the same
producing
is true.
nickels.
I don't know what the thing for a penny is, but it also costs more than a penny to produce a penny. And anyone who's interested could look up all these areas of government. The
I am
federal
interested.
government spent $2.7 trillion in payment errors since 2003. The federal government made $247 billion worth of payment errors in 2022, $236 billion in payment errors in 2023, according to the
Wow.
Government Accountability Office. These
That's almost as
are
amazing.
So a lot.
Sorry. That's almost as amazing as the statistic that Soft brings up about the credit card a week. Is it a week?
I think
It's almost so unbelievable that it's not believable.
I'll look it up again, but yeah, it's really crazy that you mean the microplastics thing, right?
Microplastics, because it's just such a crazy statistic that doesn't sound real. All that stuff Seth just said. That sounds so.
Doesn't
You're
sound
saying
right.
that's where they're going to kind of focus.
So what happens is that it took decades of people smiling and telling you how they were going to do good for you, and behind just taking for themselves, right? And you could look at all. They said they're going to post a website where they're going to put all of these things. The Musk and Vivek, all the things they're going to cut, and all the things that they found, they're going to make it totally transparent according to what they said, and we'll be able to see for ourselves. I'm sure we'll get a good laugh out of it. But what the politicians do, you would never vote for them if they told you your way. And where does that money come from? I think I looked this morning that what percent of my check goes to my pay goes to taxes. It's absolutely insane. And when you see how much is wasted,
don't look at that.
Don't look at that. Yeah, I was just about to say some things are better not looked at.
Just don't.
Okay, so but you would never you wouldn't vote for a politician who told you he was going to be wasting everything. So they have to smile and lie to you in order. I mean, because if they were actually telling you the truth about what they're doing with all the money they're taking out of your paycheck.
But I want to say it's also this. Here's what's interesting to me, and again, I want to emphasize why us talking about it. It's not from a partisan perspective. Again, this would be an interesting point, regardless of what side of politics it comes from. Why is this interesting to me? Because first of all, we know, not just in the US, pretty much everywhere there's government and bureaucracy, there's inefficiency. This is a known thing. It's like a fact. Now that this thing is happening, there's something refreshing about it. It's as if something in the human culture is awakening to say, we don't want that anymore. And again, it doesn't matter what side it's coming from. This is the fact that this is being said. It's an interesting thing because it's not just you're framing it as they're lying to you when they're true, but it's also the status quo. You know what I mean? When you lie about something, it's typically not the status quo. The status quo is something that is agreeable on everyone, even though no one wants it, and that's why you don't need to lie about it. You just accept it. That's the thing about status quos, right? And here, what is happening with this initiative? How are they calling it? The government efficiency department, whatever.
Doge.
You know, yeah. So what's interesting here is that they're basically saying no more of this status quo, and this is very interesting from a human development perspective, human
Because
culture.
that's not
kind of
something that
perspective.
just kind of like.
I don't know if it actually happens. I don't know if Elon's numbers are right. That's like beyond me. But just the fact that someone's coming up with that in a serious way and saying, you know what, in a year we're going to do this in a year, and then we will dissolve the department. We don't even need to exist after that, right? That's part of their pitch. That's an interesting thing.
Revolutionary.
It's revolutionary. It's interesting.
And that's not the only
yeah.
thing. There's the whole education thing, which I'm sure Seth knows about too.
Right. So there's another plan, which is that they want to make this thing called the American Academy, and
Right.
any citizen of the United States can get a free online college education. So we've talked about it many times. Our students, our young people who want to go into the workforce, who want to create lives for themselves, maybe make families, they're burdened with $1.5 trillion of student debt. Bullshit to put that on the people who are supposed to be building the country, right? So now there's going to
in their life. Yeah.
Also, right. So let's I think Southern Sass or someone else here said, oh, you're so much about politics. I thought you're not a politics show. Here's the point. The point is that regardless of where you fall on the spectrum and which side, this is the point. The point is that when something gets so extreme to one side, so out of control to one side, then something absolutely extreme on the other side will happen. And the point is that it's so expensive to all of us normal people, and it takes so long to get us all the way to what Bal-Islam says it.
Okay. Yeah. I want to read that. I want to read that.
Let's explain it in normal English for a second.
Okay, maybe we read it first, just a short excerpt of it. Why? Because you said that someone on the chat people are maybe our viewers are asking themselves, why are they getting so deep into politics? And it's not. We're looking at human development here. Politics is just one of the aspects of human developments, one of the manifestations of human developments, and a very important one, because it tells you about major movements, winds of change. That's what it tells you, not because it matters who is now, this guy or that guy. From a Kabbalistic perspective, the ancient Kabbalists put it very clearly. The hearts of kings and ministers are in the hands of the Creator, meaning we don't attribute any special importance to this man or that party. We're looking at laws of nature and how they operate human society. That's our perspective. And look at what Baal Sulam says, right? The greatest Kabbalist of the previous century. Look at what he says with regards to these changes, even in politics, right? So let me show this, because I got this quote in front of me. Give me a sec. Can you? No. Well, one sec. Yeah. Okay. Check this out. The duration of every political phase is just the time it takes to unveil its shortcomings and evil. While discovering its faults, it makes way for a new phase, liberated from these failings. Thus, these impairments that appear in a situation and destroy it are the very forces of human evolution as they raise humanity to a more corrected state. All right. Now, Seth, explain that. But this is why we're talking about this. Okay?
The time and pain it takes to get us so far this way, and now to drag everything back this way. Because let's put it like this. Let's say that these guys make a free school for everyone, for all American citizens who want it. And let's say everyone gets healthy, right? The RFK comes in and makes America healthy again. And these guys cut all of this government waste. And in 4 years from now, we have a country full of uh, physically, emotionally,
Educated.
nobody educated, not in debt anymore, right? But what happens
Mhm.
next, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, everyone will still be miserable because what's the quote that you said last week? That
Wait.
if
For
you,
all those in the chat who are saying we're being political, listen to what Seth just
it's
said.
okay. It's okay if people totally misunderstand what we're talking about. It's fine. It takes a long time to let it all
Hmm.
sink in. It's fine. Um,
Yeah.
if you get everything you want, you get your health, you get your education, you get out of debt, but there's still a feeling of emptiness inside. Then what? So here's the point. You can fight against the Republicans, and then you fight against the Democrats, and then you fight against the Republicans, and then you fight against the
Hmm.
Democrats, and that gives you something to work for. It gives you something, it gives
Gives
you
you a
some kind of
cause, gives you
purpose.
a goal, gives you a purpose. Yeah. Hmm.
But let's say somehow things start working out.
That's an interesting premise.
So,
Okay,
so we
wow,
have like
that's a
two,
good show. That's a documentary right
No,
there.
if done as a comedy, I
What
think it
if
would
it
work because you
worked?
just laughed at it. It's funny,
What if it
right?
worked? That's the title.
Yeah.
We'll offer it to Netflix. It's a good one.
we
It's a
got we
good
got two
one.
things. We got two things on
Who would
on
you
the table
who would
that
you curse? Who would you fight against? The problem, and also the ones who are the those who brought the good change. Who will they fight? That's another problem. It's like
Yeah.
yeah. What if it
so
worked? Nice.
we have two questions that are on the table now, and I'm begging that you guys will help make this, open this up.
Right. Right. Okay.
So the two questions are one. It takes a long time and a lot of suffering to fight all the way for the Democrats and fight all the way for the Republicans, then fight back all the way for the Democrats, right? People, I don't know, I see people, don't go to your family's house for Thanksgiving if they voted for Trump, and don't go to this one if they voted for this, and don't go for, like families fighting and all. It's just so
Right.
painful and so much
Divisive,
time. So
painful,
is
slow.
is there
Yeah.
yeah, is there a way to question number one, how do we go through these changes in a more, we already know that it goes night, day, night, day, night, day. We
Yeah.
already know,
Yeah.
right? In, out, up, down, wet, dry. This is how it goes. So if we already know that, can we stop being monkeys and try and be a little more monkey plus and figure out like this process? That's number one. And number two,
Hmm.
let's say we do that, and no one's in debt, and everyone's in great shape, and everyone's educated. But because we're not monkeys, we still have this emptiness inside of us. So then what do we do?
We'll find something
If
else
we're
to
monkeys,
fight about. Yeah.
so then we're
When
back
then we're
into it
back
again.
into the thing. Yeah, I think the answer lies in what you said in the very beginning. We have to look at what we're going through, not from where we are, but from where we're going. And you can't do that without spiritual insight, without spiritual development. If we are just judging what is happening from where we are, we're like in a two-dimensional plane, and we can never understand that we have to go up, that we have to rise to a new level of life. Everything that's happening in this world is guided by a hidden higher force of life that is like a magnet trying to like pull us up, but it has to wait for our free choice. So we either, we're like, as long as we're like just fighting and biting and arguing and and busy with who's gonna fix this for me and who's gonna fix that for me, and and this guy against that guy, all of that, we're just in our 2D plane, not going up, like resisting the magnetic force that is trying to evolve us. And we have to, like, developing spiritually is exactly the opposite of that, is becoming attentive and receptive and sensitive to the messages that this hidden higher force of development is sending to us through those predicaments, troubles, arguments, the divisiveness between us. That's kind of how we have to reshape our view, our perception of reality.
But Seth was just all excited. Seth was all excited about this, the new Doge initiative, and the American Academy, which seemed like they're not. Seems like that's possibly a good thing if people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, having to go to university, and employers accept this American Academy thing as legitimate. As I understand, they're trying to like make America have skills again. You're losing like your blue collar stuff. So, I mean, all of it in general, trying to like, compete, I guess, with other nations where China and India are, have all these, they're doing all the work. So we don't want to forget how to do it. So it seems like a good thing, right? It seems like it could potentially be.
Well, I don't know. Don't get me started on education. Education. that's.
I don't want to get you started on education. Yeah. I'm just going to say, if we're talking about getting beat, and that's, we're trying to avoid that. It sounds like maybe there's some positive things that go along with on the path too. It's not just something that's like. Well, I mean, maybe we just need to try to make more positive things happen, and then
all the way when everything went all the way to the left, right? So, like, I mean, insanely far to the left in this country, but along with that, we now have this kind of radical acceptance in most of the population, which you didn't have in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. We talked about this many times.
It's true.
Like, nobody flinches if somebody's gay. Nobody flinches if there's an interracial couple. Like, everybody, I'm sure there's pockets of hate everywhere. We're not talking about that. Yeah. But in general, you look on movies, you look on advertisements, you walk down any city, you got gay people.
Right. So basically, what you're trying to say is that in each of these pulls to different directions, we call it in politics left, right, but really it's like humanity kind of checking a certain direction, exhausting it, and then checking another direction, and so forth. In this pendulum, in this back and forth, we're learning new things and taking on like new qualities, new frames of mind, new thoughts, we're welcoming new ideas, and also rejecting some. And this is part of human development. This is what Baal Salam was exactly talking about. We're like,
when you look at when you look at science now, like, you don't need to invent science every generation. Or you look at soccer, you look at a guy like Ronaldo. Like, if there wasn't Maradona before him and Pele before him, and someone kicking a skull around 1,000 years ago or whatever, you wouldn't get to Cristiano Ronaldo. So you don't need to every generation invent everything from scratch.
Einstein said it really well. Exactly what you're saying. That like everything we think about inventions, and he said it himself, one of the biggest innovators, right, in science. And he said like creativity is just how well you hide your sources. That's a great quote from Einstein. Like, he recognized that, every new innovation is a result of everything before it. And couldn't happen before it. By the way, with our technology today, like, look at the camera, the modern camera. Who invented it? It's basically impossible to say who invented the modern camera as we know it, because it's an amalgamation of a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, and he created this and he added this and he added that, and then it's hard to put the finger on who made it. Because no one actually made it. Yeah.
You know what feels strange too, as we're talking about this? I get why it can seem so detached. Just this style of conversation where you look at humanity and you're like, what's going on with humanity, right? Because like that's not really a thing that the maybe you leave for
Mm.
anthropologists to do or something. It seems like it's weird when you have the human level, like we're a bunch of like people, right? And we're talking
Hmm.
about our own development. It's you can talk about a baby's development because you're above it and you look and you see you're like, oh, interesting, is going through this phase, going through this phase. But we bring up this conversation and we're like, yeah, and we're gonna go through this phase, or we're going through this phase.
Right.
It's
But
kind of like
there's
a
another thing there. It's what you're saying, and I think it's also the conditioning, these knee jerk reactions. You see, even with our viewers, like here, right? People who are like watching this show for a while and they know where we're coming from. As soon as you hear a word, a label, a
yeah.
name that brings up with it all of this baggage that you usually how you usually interpret these things, and you immediately find yourself like either defending something or fighting something or rooting for something, which
Emotionally
is
bound
exactly.
and
and and
clouded.
and and Seth's right. You can't blame anyone because that's our conditioning, but it's a knee-jerk reaction that has been conditioned by how we usually talk about human development in the media, in the news, how you look at commentators. It's hard to believe that there's someone who's like not taking a side, not
Yeah.
not actually trying to like promote an agenda that had a political agenda. It's we're
I don't think it
so
exists.
yeah, we don't think it exists. Yeah,
It
exactly.
actually could not
Yeah.
exist. It by law could like by natural law that thing could not exist if it unless
Yeah.
it somehow understands this like later on goal, this like ultimate goal of creation. Otherwise, it really couldn't exist by itself.
Yeah.
It's like they say, "Oh, am I going to get into this?"
Get into
No,
it.
not yet, not yet, not yet. Keep going. We'll go in a different direction. It's not time.
Okay, but let's go deeper on the hidden force behind, which is what we really want to put the emphasis on today. I mean, this is what's so crazy. Even just the fact that what we're talking about right now, we humans, that is, we're so glued to these mind locks, these knee jerk reactions that are like adversarial, um, that it's hard for us to see that a higher force is working with us. That there is we are pieces in a greater game, in a greater game of evolution, if you will, in a greater program of development. And that's what we should try to identify if we want to grow spiritually, if we want to develop as
Mm.
actual human beings, as Kabbalists call it, the speaking degree, the spiritual degree of development. That's what we need to be attentive to. What is this force guiding the world, guiding human life, guiding my personal life as well, including my feelings, emotions, desires, thoughts, all of that? What does it want from me? Where is it pushing me? What is the program of development, nudging us towards?
That's very
That I
interesting
think is.
because when you see with this, for 30 minutes we talk about this thing called politics, but I like how you mentioned this. You kind of painted a picture where like so there's a plane, like maybe that's 2D, and then there's something that's like in a three-dimensional object or being or whatever, right? And how the 2D being interprets that 3D object, and it doesn't really know because it lives in a completely different world, and you have to do this kind of like jump to a different world. You mentioned that, and we talked about politics before, and it's like politics is just kind of like this reflection, right? We said it's just kind of like a reflection of our values, where society stands.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, now that you said that, you talk about this program of nature, it's really cool to think about how a program itself, like a program, like what's a computer program? It's really just instructions, right? It's just like, a set of instructions, and somehow it's like playing out in a certain way, and we can sit in our chairs watching YouTube, watching what's happening, outside your balcony, and you see all these things happening, and there's a bunch of changes in space and time, and each one of those changes in space and time that I'm seeing, some event happening, it's influencing me so, a lot, this one's not influencing me that much, but it still kind of feel it. All those little micro changes, those are things that are happening in the external world, and they're making me feel a certain way and changing my emotional reaction to things that are happening. And you could say that this is how like this the tentacles of like the upper world of this degree that we're this
Mm.
next level of evolution that we're supposed to evolve
Mm-hmm.
to, it just kind of like exposes itself in our world, makes us react to it, and the way that we
Yes.
react is called human development, and that's just you can't
But
avoid it.
Kristen, where are the glasses though to see it? Because otherwise, what I see is like, okay, Kamala lost, Trump won, this. How do I see the guiding hand and everything
Right.
and understand?
Right.
Because on the, we're not going to leave. We're not just going to disappear off the earth. Although I did see some people, decided to move to Canada or something. But I guarantee you that they'll find the same problems wherever you can't escape anymore. We're
Yep.
in such a world that there's
Mm-hmm.
nowhere to escape to. In the past, I don't know, move to Costa Rica or Guatemala or wherever you want to go. Nowhere to go anymore. The problems are going to reach you because humanity, uh, it's an inner problem, is what we have. So, Chris, how do we identify that guiding hand through all of this? Because like we said, how long, for example, if we wanted to get to the point where we accept an interracial couple or accept someone who's gay, right? So that we could all be together, but how many decades did it take of fighting and marching and this and suffering and family problems and whatever in order to get to the point today where it's accepted? And I understand whoever put those comments in there before. I'm not talking that every single person in the whole world is completely accepting of everybody. It's come on, like let's have an honest conversation here. We're talking about a specific point. We're not talking about outlying cases that someone in some town is still racist. Of course, we're saying in general, how does society has advanced a lot in the last few decades, but it's been very
Mm-hmm.
painful. Can we now,
Mm-hmm.
as modern people who are awakening to spirituality, not have to drag our heels through this process we're going through? Can we now speed up the process? Can we lift up our heels? Can we lift off
Yeah.
the ground and find a graceful way to do this?
I think that's the whole point of spiritual development, of spiritual education, of spiritual consciousness. I don't know how you wanna call it, but that's the whole point. Do we want to just experience more and more pain, suffering in a slow, sluggish way until it's intolerable, and then we make a change? Or do we want to aim in advance to where we need to be? And that requires spiritual insight. I mean, take a look at this. Okay, I won't. I'll just read it quickly. This is easy words, right? This is from our teacher from a couple of years ago, like 3-4 years ago, February 2021. He said, "Nothing in the world happens by chance. Everything happens only for the single purpose of advancing us toward the goal to be united as one man with one heart." So this is, from a Kabbalistic perspective, this is embedded
Can you
in
say it again?
nature's plan. Nothing in the world happens by chance. Everything happens only for the single purpose of advancing us toward the goal to be united as one man with one heart. So that is if we look at it not like children, we're gonna be just hugging each other like in sing around the fire. I mean, that we are adults. We understand that there's a human nature here, egoistic human nature in each of us, and that has to somehow become developed, upgraded. This is an expansion of perception of reality and our sensation of each other and reality. This is a big thing. This is spiritual development. But if we place that as a goal, now think about what we can do in terms of how we can come up with the department of what I mean, we can come up with whatever we need to avert suffering and slow development and accumulating intolerable frustration and pain. We can advertise to each other, we can educate each other, we can promote to each other the goal that nature is pushing us towards
Okay, so
anyhow.
this is how we need to understand the difference between the Darwinian approach and the Kabbalistic approach, because
Yeah.
we have to understand where it's pulling, what is that final goal? It has to start shining for us. Chris, I wish you would talk a little bit
Yes.
more about that guiding hand, because if it's shining towards us in the future, then we know where to aim. We know how to get there. If it's not, then I'm going to wake up and think
Yeah.
I'm doing what's best. And someone else who was born opposite from me is going to wake up and do what they think is the best. And
Yes.
so we're just going to keep clashing, because I think it should be like this and they think it should be like this. And if I'm willing to compromise and they're not willing to compromise, so then
Right.
my way just gets crushed. And so then it ends up going all the way
Right.
this way until the people can't take it anymore. And
Right.
then they have a
No,
rebellion.
no.
And
So
it goes back
so
this way.
so this is why we have to get to a point where that goal, at least a tiny bit, shines to people. Just like it happens with people who study Kabbalah. And the fact is that you can have Kabbalah students who are from the left and from the right and from the middle, and they're black and they're white and they're gay and they're straight, and they can still see themselves working to complement each other, working to accept each other and live with each other and so forth. And they also go through changes. But it's because they all have, there's like a ray of light that opens their eyes just a little bit, gives them some glimpse into that final goal. I think that, in a sense, needs to happen on a massive scale. Like
I
it's
want to
all,
talk about the.
yeah.
I want to
Go
talk
ahead. Go
about
ahead.
that ray of light. I just had like this kind of sensation, like if that ray of light, it's like metaphorical speak, but emotionally, you could say that it's that you all of a sudden see that we're missing some component to make life work. And then when you feel that something's lacking, like then you start looking for that component. That's what it means that something shines, kind of like off in the distance. But you guys were talking about something like kind of like this general, well, act better between us and all this stuff. That's kind of like a general approach to it. But there's also another aspect which I kind of connected more to, which was this personal aspect that like spiritual development is not just that on the that I see that people are getting along better in the world, or I don't know, something good is happening
Right,
and making my
right,
life
right,
better.
right.
There's this aspect that like this guiding force is directly speaking to me. There's this very personal aspect to it, and it's not just like, okay, we're fixing the world, but instead along with that, that whole process is an inner process where you get to know the thing that created you by understanding yourself, by understanding how it worked,
Yes.
what it did. You understand its attitude towards you, and this is like a thing that you build. You know, just like you watch a baby develop, and it's now knows how to do 2 plus 2, and now it knows how to run off a wall. This gradual development, there's an emotional internal development that occurs whenever you're able to
How
become
do we
more
recognize it,
sensitive to
Chris?
these things that are happening outside of you, and you understand this kind of language. What
How do we recognize it? Where is it? How could somebody
the need
know
that's
how to
so
work with it?
so if the a person on the street, or I don't know, maybe whoever's listening, maybe they feel that there's like something wrong, and they don't even really know what's wrong, and they don't even really know what the fix is. I think if this is kind of like the way you walk through your day, where everything just kind of feels like muffled, like woo, and you're not really sure, nothing really makes sense. You feel like you're kind of like despaired, but also hopeful. There has to be this nice combination, this recipe where a person's ready to just look for something new. Until then, they're just distracted or blinded, or
Okay, I'm ready. I want to see something new.
I
So
think
where do
that's
I
all
see
it
it?
takes. I think that's all it takes.
I,
Is
I
that
I
you're
agree.
ready.
I think it all it takes. There's basically two routes here. It's either the personal development route, which is, it's like it's either your time or it isn't yet. You know, it's like a baby is still a baby until it is 5 year old, and then it's 5 year old until it's 6 year old, and so forth. It's just there are steps in nature that you can't skip. You can't, like, you can speed them up though, and that takes us to another route, which is the route of those who are aware, those who are those who see, help the others see as well. I'm a big believer, at the end of the day, in call it education, call it awareness, call it. Barcelom writes about this extensively, and I think that it's a huge difference between someone who lives life, like you said. It's survival of the fittest. I'm only looking at what I'm seeing in front of my eyes right now, and I see that I need to be the biggest, the strongest, and to survive and thrive. Right? Like, this is kind of like, this is. I mean, I'm simplifying things, but let's say this is like one kind of mindset that leads to certain behaviors and certain policies and certain ideas and ways of life and so forth. And then there's another version of reality where I am a piece that was shattered from all the other pieces, and I need to find my connection to all the other pieces, which is where I find my purpose and my connection to an eternal existence that comes from before this shattering into many pieces that live in time and space. But even without that, even just understanding that we're a piece of the whole versus I need to fight the others to cut through, that understand seeing reality like this or seeing reality like that changes everything. Changes everything. And that, I think, is the big
Imagine, imagine we
yeah.
ate meals, but we didn't get any pleasure from food and we didn't have any hunger from food. We just knew, like, from experience, that people around us died if they didn't eat. But we didn't have any hunger mechanism
Okay.
and we didn't have any pleasure
That's a
mechanism.
cool thought exercise. Okay, so you don't
Okay.
you eat,
So that,
you can eat, you don't feel. Let me just get it right. Yeah, you don't feel hunger, you don't feel pleasure when you eat, but you see that when others don't eat, they die. Correct?
yeah. So you have to do it, right? And you just, every person just makes like a stopwatch or something,
Right.
and every so many
Okay.
hours they go and eat, just like you go put gas in your car, right? That you
Right.
don't feel better when you put gas in your car. You just do it so you can move.
I feel
I
Okay.
worse.
don't know if
So
that's what you
Yeah.
mean, but this is a great analogy for spiritual development. This is really good. Maybe that's what you were
happens to be a
going for.
show where we talk about spiritual development. And
Right.
therefore,
Okay. Okay.
as you guys were speaking, I was thinking of this example that we're coming to a point now where we need to see the left and the right, the people opposite from us. The hunger, it doesn't feel good to be hungry, but without that hunger, I can't enjoy the meal. It doesn't feel good to maybe have to exert myself to the point of exhaustion. But when I exert myself to the point of exhaustion, when I achieve the goal, it's so much sweeter than if it was just given to me as charity. We have to start to see the process that we're going in and start to see all the opposite pieces in this process as part of a whole. And in just the fact that we start to understand this worldview already starts to speed up our process and already starts to be able to allow us to lift our heels out of the ground and stop dragging them and making this process so painful, that we're talking about a world where everyone is accepted. No, it doesn't mean that someone who's an axe murderer is accepted as an axe murderer. We're not talking about that tomorrow the most freak, far out people who are trying to hurt people is accepted and loved in the middle of the circle. Not what we're talking about. It's a gradual process, but not the majority of people are not axe murderers. Okay, the majority of people are not freak,
And
rapists.
society, sick society is usually what creates those in the first place. So you fix society
Mm-hmm.
and you've kind of solved your
And a
problem.
healthy society
Mm-hmm.
can take some freak people on the fringe and have a way to manage them. So let's deal with and let's focus on where we can start building these connections correctly, and slowly, like an onion, like the layers, one layer and then another layer and then another layer. And we hope and expect that this is going to be a very good year. We don't know what is in store, just that we will be speeding up. Humanity's process is speeding up, and we want to go through it with you all in the most comfortable, positive way. And enough with the wars, enough with the fighting. Let's all, everyone here, this will reverberate through the network, that we want to exist in a system where we start to accept all of these opposites as forces that move us forward.
Wait, hey, wait a second. Before you feel like you're trying to, I had a cool thing because Asaf said something like, "Imagine." Oh, I'm bugging out over there on the screen. Can you hear me?
Now
Okay.
it's good. Now it's good. Yeah, you had a little bit of a weird multi-dimensional experience there.
I'll tell you later. Uh, Whenever you're like, imagine, just imagine like what would happen if we
Okay,
discovered.
your video is stuttering, but we hear you well. Keep going.
Close your eyes, and then
Yeah.
the world would look. Imagine how we would relate if we, understood that there was this force and there was this plan and there's a development. As soon as you said that, I was like, imagine the day where people, I guess, accepted the idea. Like one time, they made like I guess the scientists came and they did a press release. They're like, guys, today we're going to tell you about germs. You need to wash your hands. They're everywhere. They're going to kill you. And just like imagine that day, like how society changed. Imagine that it was like that. Like it was kind of like this overnight. Everyone got the message. They were like, okay, we don't want to die.
How many
like
people didn't believe it probably at first too, right? What are you talking about? I don't see any germs.
True,
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like that, but just on a on a more.
It is.
Yeah.
And Barasulam, by the way, uses pretty much this exact example, how the wisdom of Kabbalah helps you. It's like a magnifying glass, to kind of see what you can't see otherwise. All right. Okay.
So I'm going to do that.
Friends, we'll see you next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Big hug to everybody. Wishing everyone health and peace. We'll see you soon.
See you next time.
Only love can cover all the wicked things we've done. Each our spots alone in the as one that face the horizon. I know everyone knows that it's happy ending. When our hearts go feeling once again. Remember when we were once all together as a people and each had love for all the others. We remember when we were all connected as a one nation, bound in love for one another. Peace will reign again. Peace will reign again. When things were so easy then, just as children we went rumbling through the garden. Now it seems alas something has come between us that will not allow one another to feel each other. The winds of war are blowing and we don't wanna go. The winds of war are blowing and we don't wanna go. If we keep our heart together in the dark of night and act the love between us, now we can't deny we need the love to be strong. So when the olive branch falls, we will all be one. Peace will reign again. Peace will reign again. Reign again. Peace will reign again.